Hi everyone! Welcome back to the last video in the 4 years van life series. This video is all about how I love doing van life with dogs, but there are definitely downsides to it. Let's get to it. So I live in this van called Sophie with 3 little dogs, which you can hear on the bed at the moment. This one's Bobby, and then I also have Wolfie and Pilou, and they are... Wolfie's not having it. Wolfie! Maybe Wolfie wants to be in the video. I don't know what's happening. So in the last video of this series, I was talking about how I love doing van life with dogs and how I don't think I would like it as much without them or even do it without them. But there are definitely downsides. So I made a little list with things that we can talk about, which are absolutely downsides in my opinion. But they definitely do not outweigh the pros for me. But it's a good thing to think about if you're not having a dog in your van at the moment and you're considering it. So I'm going to start off with temperature. And one of the things living in the van with the dogs is that you're always at risk of having the van heat up too much, getting too hot, which is unsafe for the dogs. If you're not aware of this, dogs cannot sweat. They get rid of the heat through their breath and their feet. And if the air around them or the ground around them and everything gets too warm, they're struggling with heat. And especially with this little fella, he has like a flat nose. He struggles with heat and he's also older. And in wintertime, it can get really cold. Now, what this means doing van life with dogs is that I myself don't go to places in summertime where it gets super hot. So we did go to Sweden last year in the summer and it also got really hot there. So we got a campsite somewhere in the shade and we tried to just hang out there all day and not melt. I was also struggling. That's a good thing. I also struggle with regulating my own temperature, so I don't really like heat either. But I'm also a person who would like to go snorkeling, and I haven't been able to do that with them because if I would be somewhere where I would be able to go snorkeling, there's no way I can leave them in the van. It's going to be way too hot. If it's comfortable enough for me to go into the water, it's too hot for them to stay in the van. And if I cannot leave them on the beach either, it's too hot. If you're traveling with dogs, you constantly need to keep an eye out for the temperature and if it's safe for them. Then the next point on the list is, I love my van and it's awesome for us, but it's a tiny space. They don't have a lot of space to roam on their own. So I need to give them the freedom to roam. So I have to make sure that there are places that we either go on walks or that there are places that they can run around safe outside. If you have a house, you generally have more space than a van, or if you have any other living accommodation, you generally have more space than a van. And yeah, I need to make sure that they have space to roam around because inside of the van there's not that much space for them to move around. Then the next on the list is wildlife or other animals. They don't even have to be wild animals. What I mean with that is that when I was in Sweden, I was actually struggling with this. This was our last travel, so this is the closest on my mind. In Sweden, all dogs are leashed. That's awesome. And I have not encountered any stray dogs, so I don't think they are there. So that was awesome. But there were so many critters that could harm them. So there were ants that were biting them. There were flies that were biting them. There were so many things that can annoy them. So as a person, you also have to look out for certain like ticks or stuff. But the dogs are in so much more danger. And there's also vipers that can bite them, which is very dangerous because they're so small. And yeah, so there's wildlife that you have to look out for. But also in Spain and Portugal, I would go crazy. It would make me crazy. Bobby is a reactive dog. And we would be in Portugal and then there would be off-leash, not necessarily stray dogs, but just people leave their dogs roaming the streets. They just live outside there, which is awesome for these dogs. But I would encounter dogs everywhere and it would make me crazy. I would just walk into a beautiful town. I would walk into a street and there would be this big shepherd in the road. I had to turn around or somehow try and get the dog out of the way. Or we were in this castle and then all of a sudden there's a dog there. So I was lifting my dogs up. And yeah, that's something that maybe if you encounter cats and dogs in the streets normally, you wouldn't even mind. And if you have a super friendly dog, maybe that's not that big of a deal. But for us, it was horrible, especially when the girls weren't spayed yet and neutered. that they would be in heat. Oh, that was horrible with all the off-leash dogs. So yeah, that's not fun. You encounter so many. There are risks and animals that you can encounter, which is not a lot of fun. And then I've talked about this in another video, but I'm going to bring it up again. It's the paperwork if you travel with dogs. If you go into countries, there's always things you have to look up and investigate a little. Like if you go to France, you need a certain sticker on your van and the stuff you need to look out for. But if you travel with dogs, even if I would go to Portugal, I would travel through Belgium, maybe Germany if I go from this part of the Netherlands, but I don't think so. But probably Belgium, France, Spain, and then into Portugal. All of these countries that you're going through, you need to look at what you need to have in your van for them, if they are even allowed to sit in the front, if they need to have like special leashes inside of the van, in the front of the van, if they need to be caged. There's so many rules. You need to look up all of them, what shots they need to have. They need to have rabies for most of them, but for instance, if you want to go to Norway, you need to have them be dewormed, and that needs to happen within a couple of days before you enter Norway, and it can't be longer. I think it's like 48 hours. You need to research all of it and make sure that you obey by the rules, because if you do not, you can get in trouble and they can even get confiscated and quarantined. Or you can just get a fine, but that's still not fun. So there's lots of things that it requires more research to have them safe with you and to make sure that you are not breaking any rules in the countries that you're going to. This also means that there are some countries that I cannot bring them to, so I'm not going there. So for instance, I love Iceland, and if my dogs were welcome in Iceland, we would probably spend an entire summer there, or like summer and fall. But the dogs are not allowed into Iceland, so I'm probably going to Iceland if I get a chance, but I cannot bring them. So I won't be bringing my van, and I would probably just fly there, and I don't know how the rest will be. But that's too bad, because I'm not saying it right. They are allowed into Iceland, but I think they need to be quarantined for 3 months. I would never do that. If I would move there, of course, I might consider it, but I don't think so. Maybe if I can work at the quarantine base every day for those 3 months, I can just be there all day, then maybe I'll be fine. But I would not do that. So there are places that I cannot take them to. And also I was looking at Expedition Ola, and I saw that when they drove somewhere, I think it's South America, they were driving through and then they wanted to turn around, and then it turned out that they couldn't bring their dogs from that border back into the place that they were in. So there's lots of, and she had to fly over, I think it was like Honduras or something. But yeah, those are things that you can encounter when you're traveling with dogs. They can just, at borders, it can be problematic. I've also seen people take a ferry into Norway, and then when they got to Norway, it turns out they didn't do the deworming, or they didn't do something correct, and they confiscated the dog and put it in quarantine. That would be my hell. I would never want to be parted from them. So yeah, there's things that can be a hassle, because also the rules change all the time. So every time I travel with them, I research again if I'm not missing anything and if nothing has changed. Then another thing is vets on the road and vet costs. When I'm in the Netherlands in a certain place, I usually find a vet there in that place that I like, and then we can go there. But when you're traveling, that changes, and you never know when you're going to need a vet, and then you need to find one, and hopefully that'll be a good one that you like, that you can give the care that you want to give. But also, when I was in Spain, I noticed that the vets were, well, I don't want to say cheap, because a vet is still, I think, kind of expensive, but it was better than the Dutch prices. But I've heard that if you're in Sweden and something goes wrong, that you really need dog insurance, which I don't have, pet health insurance, because I have heard that in Sweden and Norway it's super expensive to go to the vet, and yeah, that can be a hassle if you're there and something happens. That can go up into thousands of euros. I hope that will never happen to us, but that's a thing that can happen, and that can have expenses rise very quickly, and those aren't fun things. You don't want to be in a position where you actually want to provide your dog with healthcare, but that means it's so expensive that you won't be able to do it. Then, space in the van. I'm a solo female traveler in this van, so all my stuff is in here. But I think that about well, I want to say 30%, but that's a bit much. I think that like 17 or 18% of the van is filled with stuff for them. So they have their own doghouse, they have their own rugs, but they also have like, I have lots of food storage for them. Maybe it's more. Maybe it is around 22%. I carry especially when we travel, I carry these big bags of food, and I have trimming supplies so I can cut Booby's hair. I have a stroller for them, which takes up big space. I have coats for them. I have brushes, medication, food bowls, water bowls, toys. So I carry a lot of stuff for them, leashes, first aid stuff. So I carry a lot of stuff for them, and especially the food and the stroller take up a lot of space. And of course, they take up some space. So I can't really take a passenger with me. I can, but then you need to have a dog on your lap when you're traveling with me. Change of dog. I stood up for a second, and now there's a different dog in my lap. This is Wolfie. Wolfie, you want to say? Oh, I'm falling. I cannot put my foot down. I need to have my foot on the thingy. Yeah. Okay. Another thing is, which I love to call doggy glitter, is hair and dirt in the van. There is so much sand on my bed, and they drag so much, especially if it rains, they drag so much sand inside the van, and like leaves and stuff, they drag everything inside the van. So, and Bobby doesn't really shed. I need to cut his hair, but he doesn't really shed. But these girls, Pilou kind of sheds, but Wolfie sheds like crazy. So, yeah, there's hair everywhere. On my socks, on my underwear, there's hair everywhere. In my bed, everywhere there's hair on my clothes. But, yeah, it's doggy glitter. And, yeah, I don't really mind. But some dog breeds shed like crazy. And, yeah, it does get everywhere. And, it just makes everything so messy. So that's a thing to keep an eye out for. Especially because... if you have a house, you can say, okay, the dog only stays in the living room and in the yard or something. But here, this is the entire house, so hair flies everywhere. It's everywhere. It's messy. But yeah, I think I don't really mind. But it's a downside to having dogs in a small space. Okay, another one on the list is on lots of campsites, you have to pay per dog per day, and they also, lots of times, have a maximum amount of dogs you're allowed to bring to the campsite. So sometimes you're not even allowed to bring more than 1 or 2 dogs. And I have 3 of them. What I've also noticed is if there is a campsite that isn't super expensive and you're allowed to bring more dogs, is that I'm not the only person there that has more dogs. So usually if there's a campsite that allows a bigger number of dogs in one van, there's lots of dogs on the property. And because Bobby is reactive, Wolfie's also reactive because he is reactive, so she responds to them. And Pilou is reactive in the sense that she loves everybody and wants to play with everybody. So they all get really wound up when they see other dogs. So either it's expensive to bring them, or they're not allowed, or it's a place where there's lots of other dogs. So yeah, that's something you have to keep in mind. Then, the risks of diseases. So, in the Netherlands, they get shots, and actually they do have the rabies shot, but they don't need it they do have the rabies shot, but they do not need that in the Netherlands. We have that, of course, because we travel. But that's not the only thing that they can get hurt from. The rabies shot they have because it's mandatory to get into these countries. There are other risks in different countries. So, for instance, there is the sand fly, I think, or the sand. Well, there's something in the sand in Spain and Portugal and maybe in other places that can cause leishmania. And I do think that you can get a shot for leishmania, but I don't think we have that in the Netherlands. I don't think it's available here. But so yeah, they can get sick. And then I also heard about different diseases with ticks in different countries. So I know about, what's that called? Lyme disease. But there's more diseases that they can get. And now I'm only talking about Europe. And if you look around globally, I think there's even more risks. It's always risk analysis between, do I want to, for instance, they have... Seresto collars, which I thought about long and hard, but now they just have it year round. They get 2 a year because they go about 6 to 8 months that they work. But it's always a risk analysis between if they get sick, what is that like? And if they wear this toxic collar, what would that be like? And that's with everything. If you go to certain countries where there's risks with ticks, or I think there's even in Sweden, there's a tick that can get you sick, but also people can get sick from, it's like, I don't really know what it is, but yeah, dogs can get diseases in other parts in Europe or the world that you might not have in your own country. And then, of course, like I said, there's ants, snakes, vipers, and there's also other creatures that can harm them, and yeah, that can get bad. Yeah, those are things that I don't really know at the moment which ones are where, because when we went to Spain and Portugal, that was winter time, and I thought that the leishmania fly in the sand was only from certain temperatures and up, and when we were there, there wasn't really a risk, wasn't really the risky time. I always have the Seresto collars on them to hopefully keep them safe, have the risk a little bit lower. Then I cannot always leave them in the van. And that's especially when you're traveling. I did see, though, I really like this. In Sweden, when people have the dog in the car, they have a big crate in the back of the car. And then when they go in the store, they just leave the car open. So the back, what's that, the hood? No, the hood is the front. The back, the trunk is open. It's just open, and the dogs are just sitting there in their crates. Now, I cannot do that because they will bark like crazy, and I will be so worried that somebody would take them. You can't always leave your dogs in the van if it's too hot. Too cold is not really an issue because I can have the heater, I have coats for them. Too cold, I have blankets. Too cold is not really something I'm super scared of. But too hot is an issue. So if I'm traveling, I usually go get groceries either in the morning or in the evenings, and I go into have a short a grocery stop, and otherwise I just don't leave them on their own in the van. And we do have a stroller, so if we go to towns, I just bring them. But there's also things that I cannot do because I carry them. For instance, when we went through France, last time we were coming back from, I think, Portugal and Gibraltar and everything, we came past Euro Disney, and I still had some budget, and I really want to go to Euro Disney. I've been wanting to go there for so long, and every time it just doesn't happen, or I don't have anybody to go with. And I thought, oh, I'm gonna go there. So I looked it up, that there were actually parking spaces in there. It was March. Parking spaces under solar panels. So I thought, oh, I'll go there, and then I'll leave the dogs in the van. I'll go into the park, and then in the afternoon I'll go back. It's gonna be lots of walking, but I'm okay. Then I researched. Oh yeah, and they also had like a doggy daycare there, but you couldn't schedule that. You needed to see if there was place available if you get there. I thought it was something like that. But then I saw the rules, and even though the campsite is under solar panels, so the van wouldn't get too hot, you're not allowed to leave your dog in the van. And they could, I thought it said something like they could break your van open if you would do it or something. So I thought, crap. So that was also a thing. I was driving back from Spain to the Netherlands, and I couldn't go there because there was no way. The dogs weren't allowed to do the park. And also, they wouldn't be happy if I would leave them in the daycare there. But yeah, there was no way I was going to do that. Or I had to find some other daycare, but they don't like that. So if it's something that they won't be happy about, I won't do it. So yeah, there are things that I haven't been able to do. In Gibraltar, I did do a lot of things because I went onto a dolphin excursion, and then I just went back to the van, walked the dogs, and it wasn't too hot at that point. And then I would go walk the dogs, but I didn't take a bus or anything. I was walking everything and I had blisters on my feet at the end of the day. But that was lots of fun. But I always have to keep in mind that they're not allowed to go everywhere. They're not allowed to go into places, into stores. And I can't always leave them in the van for longer periods of time. So there's lots of things that I cannot do because they're with me on my travels. Then the biggest con I always think about is if anything happens to me, what will happen to them? Who will take care of them? So best case scenario, I'm still able to talk to talk to people and tell them to go to the van and get my dogs or get help for my dogs. You know, if I would be like severely injured, of course I wouldn't really mind who takes care of them as long as they're being taken care of. And if I would get severely injured, I'm very sure that my dad is going to be on the first flight over, so it's only going to be for, how long would that be, like 24 hours tops, that I would need anything for them. But worst case scenario, if anything happens to me and I'm no longer capable of talking, that is my worst nightmare. For instance, if I would go into a grocery store in a place that's hot, so I'll go there in the morning, I'll leave the van. I always put the dogs in the back of the van if there's any chance of the front of the van getting any sunlight and heating up fast. So they always put them in here, and then I go get my groceries. But if I would like slip and fall and be unconscious inside of the supermarket, people won't know that my dogs are in the van. So if then the ambulance would take me to the hospital, my dogs are in the van. And usually I have like the Max Air fan on, but still the van can get warm. And that's one of my biggest nightmares, is like my worst nightmares, is that they would be stuck inside the van. People wouldn't be aware of it and that the van would get too hot. But yeah, that's a thing that I'm super scared of, is that something would happen to them if anything happens to me. And there's ways that I can get around that. So if I travel, I always think of doing this. I never do it. Actually, this time I'm telling myself I have to do this because it's my worst nightmare, but I don't think about it. If I just put on my phone, put in case of emergency, my dogs are in this van, please help them. That will be on the front screen of my phone. So people would see that if they get my phone out. Of course, I have my the phone numbers from my parents with ice in my phone and stuff. But yeah, that's yeah. And probably if they call my dad immediately, my dad would say there are dogs in the van, please help them. But yeah, that's a scary thing. If anything would happen to me, also, I don't know if you know this video, but yesterday I saw on TikTok this video of a woman cycling with her dog on somewhere around cliffs, and then her dog came to her. I'm laughing, but it wasn't really funny. She fell with her bike down the cliff. And I was like, yeah, if I would be walking with the dogs and I fall down the cliff, then what? But then I would still think, okay, my dogs are outside, so they can run to safety. But if they're in the van, inside the van is my biggest nightmare. And always, this is me talking about something that could just, like an accident that can happen, but also there can be like ill intent. Somebody could try and hurt me, and then, yeah, what happens to my dogs? Yeah, that's one of the things that's really a big thing that I think about, is what if I'm no longer capable of taking care of them, but also not capable of speaking out for them? Will they be safe? And will other people please find them? So hopefully that will never happen. This is like super worst case scenario. But yeah, that's the thing that I really worry about as a solo traveler. If you're with multiple people, that's of course, hopefully, I want to say that's of course not an issue, but you never know. You can get you can go into a dolphin excursion and both get eaten by a shark. I don't know, something can happen to the both of you. I think that covers a lot of the cons. There's a chance I forgot some, or there's also a chance that you thought of some cons that I didn't even say out loud because they are no cons for me, but maybe they are for you. So if you have anything to add, please let me know, because it can help other people in their decision or just in their research. And maybe I forgot to think about them. Thank you so much for watching today's video. I hope you enjoyed it. And if you're interested in this content, I have a whole playlist with videos about my 4 years Vanlife adventures. Maybe those are interesting to you too, so you're free to go watch those. I want to thank you so much for watching. If you want to support our channel and our future adventures, you are welcome to do so through our channel membership. And I will see you in the next one. And in the meantime, don't forget to say yes to new adventures.